Hello.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey. It's going good. How are you?
I didn't even ask you how it was going yet. Why did you assume that's what I was going to ask?
Well, you said what's up, which is kind of a way of asking how it's going.
Oh, I didn't even remember saying that. I'm sorry. I'm very absent-minded. Okay.
You've lost this debate. You've lost this debate
It's
already.
already fucking over, dude. Jesus Christ. All right. So first I want to address the stereotype of who is the most enlightened individual in your video, the radical centrist who equivocates every single point of view.
Yeah.
So this is a stereotype that I see in the skeptic community on YouTube, where basically, I guess, like, the big meme is you take every single point of view, you treat all of them as equal, and then you don't actually have the intellectual integrity to do any homework and find out the validity of any single point of view. You basically just throw your hands up and go, oh, well, I don't know, they got some arguments, right? Is that kind of meme,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly the posture.
Yeah, so that kind of shit is really, really, really fucking irritating. If you're a large commentator and you talk about politics a lot, and I have to sit here and I have no fucking idea what you think about any particular position, or what your position is on any particular issue, I think that says a lot about it says a lot about your integrity. If you're too scared to take a stance on anything and you want to try to skirt the line on every single issue, I think it's really dumb. So I agree with that in making fun of that radical centrist kind of thing.
Yeah, well, especially since it's I guess one of the things that I'm showing with that character is that the radical centrist actually does have a position or some position or another. Like there's no real avoiding that. It's sort of, but it comes out implicitly based on the way that you respond to certain people. I mean, even if you like, because I mean, if your position is that, like, I give everyone an equal voice, like, that ends up being a huge advantage to people who are, for instance, like propagandists.
Sure.
If you treat everyone the same, if you just sort of give everyone a platform to say whatever they think, it's not necessarily that's the most responsible way to carry out dialogue.
To some extent, if you're not willing to put in the time to do any research and to have the intellectual integrity to challenge views, so like. Obviously, I mark this out because I guess you could say I give a voice to a lot of these people, right? So I have some stake of this. But I think a good example of somebody that does something that you're saying. I hate to use it as an example because I haven't watched too much of his content, but it seems like Rick. Is it Rick Rubin? Dave Rubin?
Dave Rubin.
So he seems like the archetypal spineless skeptic that will put anybody on his show and then not really question them at all, but just kind of give them a platform to preach, and then they just kind of walk off, and nothing was really challenged or discussed at depth, other than it's kind of like it feels like a 2-hour ad or whatever for whatever particular brand of whatever that person is selling.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that's basically what he does, except that, I mean, in his case, there's just a particular kind of person that he has on his show again and again and again, and so it's not even like, it's not like one week it's a communist, and then the next week it's a, like, libertarian, and then it's like it's consistently just anyone who complains about SJWs goes on Rubin's show, whether it's Milo Yiannopoulos or Jordan Peterson or just...
Which inadvertently plugs you into this very right-leaning, whatever, sure.
So I mean, clearly Rubin has a political stance and a very specific set of issues that he's promoting. So
I guess, are you going to tell me that Sargon's not a true liberal now too? Is that the next?
That's absolutely next. Yeah.
So here's something interesting that I think is actually really important, and I noticed that to some extent I think I stand out from a lot of people here in that I disagree with a lot of this. So. Are you familiar? I don't know if this experiment was actually carried out or not, but I know that there have been copycats that have carried out that have had the same results. Are you familiar with the 5 monkey thing? The 5 monkeys in the room?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so I'll explain this. I think this might have just been a thought experiment, but you can Google videos of it being carried out in real life and happening. So the way that this experiment goes is you've got 5 monkeys in a room, okay? You have a banana at the top of a ladder, and anytime the monkeys try to go up to get the banana, there's either an electric shock administered to the floor or like somebody squirts all of them with a water bottle or something like that, right? So the monkeys go up. Anytime one goes up, they all get squirted. And eventually what they figure out is, like, if anybody goes up for anything, they'll try to pull them down. But nobody does it right after all, right? Well, what happens is you remove one monkey, and then you put another monkey into the room, and the first thing that monkey does is he tries to climb the ladder, but all the other monkeys pull him down, right? Like, you can't go up, you're not allowed to go, right? So what you do is you repeat this until eventually you've replaced every single monkey in the room, and what you have is you've got 5 monkeys that are trying to prevent them from doing something, but they haven't actually experienced that negative stimulus. They don't have the punishment, right? So initially, this was supposed to be a thought experiment, but if you Google, you can find videos. One show did something where, where not. I don't know where you think I'm going with this, but nothing too edgy. So,
I'm thinking about people shocking monkeys.
No. So like the one show that I saw, they took a woman and she went into it was a doctor appointment or an optometrist appointment or something, and every time they would push the buzzer, everybody would stand. And the first like 8 times this happened, the woman was like really confused, but eventually she started to stand with everybody else without anybody really telling her to. She just kind of did it. Well, what happened is, as people found out one by one, she was the last person in that room. And then when they rang the buzzer, she still stood. Now, not only did that happen, but then they brought in a second person, and she stood, and he was confused for a couple times. He guessed why she did it, and she just said, well, when they ring the bell, we stand. And eventually he started to do it as well. And I thought it was really interesting. So this is relevant, I promise. So in your video, I feel like you have to be really careful on, I'll say on the left, but in general, you have to be very careful because sometimes we inadvertently engage in tautology. So this is going to sound really extreme, but like, I think that a bad statement to make right now is that Nazism is bad because it's Nazism. I know that it seems tautological because it's implied now that Nazi equals bad, but it seems like there are a lot of ideas that are contained in this kind of white nationalist ideology that a lot of people on the left kind of take for granted that obviously this is bad, but there are a lot of people that don't necessarily share that idea, and I think it's worth engaging with it because of how popular it is at this point, in the hopes that my enlightened marketplace of ideas will eventually, I guess, like take over. You kind of. I think on some level, I agree. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that there's a lot of ideas that we put under the heading of Nazism, the notion of like ethno-states and these kinds of things that on the face of them, many people find these ideas attractive. I mean, obviously, historically, people have been attracted to these ideas, and there's no reason to think it wouldn't happen again. So I actually. I do agree with you that it's not. I don't think it's advantageous to the left to treat the opposition as if it's so self-evidently bad that even that we should. It's like beneath our dignity to even argue against it. Because I was kind of what it felt like a little bit.
So I don't agree with that. Mm-hmm. What I do think is that you have to be careful about the way you do it.
Sure.
And I think that sometimes live debate can be a bad way to do it unless you really know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So with this last video I just made about debating the alt-right, mm-hmm. which in case people are watching who haven't seen the video, basically what happens is there's an anti-Semite alt-right person who's debating a sort of very ineffective Jewish intellectual.
Yeah, we listened to a lot of it. Don't DMC.
Okay. You did watch it. So basically what I think is that this video, it's kind of the first YouTube video I've done that this sounds really pretentious. It is really pretentious, but I kind of think of it more as like art than politics in a sense that like I don't have a specific interpretation in mind that I think is like the correct message I want everyone to take away from it. Mm-hmm. I think there's a few different messages you could take away from it. And one of them is that you shouldn't debate the alt-right at all. One of them is simply that we need to be not Saul Saltzman, like in terms of dealing with the alt-right. And I see this happening a lot, including myself, when I debate the alt-right, is people on the left, we just get kind of flustered and befuddled and just like exasperated and desperate really fast and we end up looking bad. You know what I mean? In these mm-hmm. debates, because look at the presidential debates. Like it's completely possible to wind up having better arguments and be much better prepared and much more well-informed and still wind up in the eyes of an audience anyway, looking like some kind of sniveling egghead or simpering, loser or whiny moralist or angry, irrational SJW or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So there's this performative element to debate that I feel like I've sort of not really seen a whole lot of people on the left master. And there's people on the right who are very good at it.
Yeah. So like one of the big things that happens on the left, and this is a huge criticism I have of the left in general, is this I feel like sometimes people on the left become so like dogmatic in their approach to things that they refuse to see any possible downside to any possible thing that they're saying. And I feel like if you're not willing to recognize any of that, that you end up coming off as like the DARE programs in school. Like, I'm not allowed to smoke marijuana because, you know, all of my hair is going to fall out, my dick is going to shrivel up, and I'm going to die or whatever. Like, I know this is bullshit. So if that's bullshit, there's a name for this fallacy or whatever. But like, or not a fallacy, but there's a name for this where, like, if somebody lies once, like, all of their credibility suddenly comes into question, right? Like, if I find out that one thing you said is totally wrong, well, now I'm not sure about anything, you know? And you get these kind of slogans that I think the left has that's like that it's just really, really dumb. That, like, for instance, so like, it might sound bad saying this, but like the slogan, like, diversity is our greatest strength. Like, is diversity really our greatest strength? Like, I don't know if that's really true. And diversity causes a lot of problems. And that is undeniable, right? People are tribalistic to some extent, right? But I don't think that your argument should be that diversity doesn't cause any problems and everybody will always be fine. No, I think that your argument should be more along this way. Yeah, there are challenges with diversity. However, you know, the wide amount of people that we can bring in, that if we, you know, cultivate the right kind of ideas and integrate everybody well into the same kind of society, you know, can ultimately be more beneficial to us than trying to hardcore segregate everybody and, you know, fuck over entire sections of the world by cutting them off, you know, from the rest of society. Like, I think that it's better to argue honestly about things rather than to pretend that everything is perfect and you have no flaws in yourself. Like, I think that was a big problem with Hillary Clinton's stuff.
This is something I've definitely encountered with like the debate about the European refugee crisis, for example, where, like, I think in response to like fairly extreme bigotry toward refugees and towards Muslims, people respond by completely like being like no, like it's gonna be
like a hijab as a symbol of women's freedom and shit.
Right, this kind of thing. And the thing is, like, actually the fact of the matter is that it is going to be difficult for Sweden to incorporate all those refugees into society. And so we're not helped by denying that there's going to be any difficulty at all, because then it makes you seem delusional.
Exactly.
Or if you actually believe it yourself, then you are delusional. But so the point should be made, like, yes, this is going to be difficult, but it's worth doing. And, you know, it shouldn't be that this is just completely fine. There's going to be no problems at all that come about as a result of this refugee crisis, because of course there will be. There's going to be social problems when you have very impoverished war refugees coming into your country with little work experience. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be difficult
for sure
to incorporate those people into society from a very different culture. Of course it's going to be difficult. Of course it is, but it's worth doing. And that's what the argument should be. Not that, oh, it's just going to be completely fine, it's going to be easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm really big on that. I'm a big proponent of my goal is always that the arguments need to be over the important issues, not over, you know, kind of these like really fallacious straw men that are kind of built up on both sides, or in some cases straw men that are inhabited by both sides. The left idea that everything is perfect and nothing will ever be wrong with immigrating massive groups of people, and then the right idea that that idea that like every single brown person that immigrates to a country is going to turn it into the new rape capital of the fucking universe or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like the discussion is really, really, really important, and I get really scared when I see left people engage in it. It kind of reminds me. This is my big complaint about Sam Harris. When you engage in this kind of not you, but when people on the left engage in this kind of circular reasoning of like, well, white nationalism is bad because it's white nationalism, right? Or even like some of the arguments that you're whatever the guy on the left was in your video.
Saul.
Saul. Yeah. When that guy was like making arguments, when you're saying things like, you know, well, Nazism was bad, it resulted in the death of like 10 million people. Not everybody necessarily thinks that's a bad idea anymore, you know? Like, I think it might be worth it to revisit, like, why don't we want an ethno-state? Why is diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, and diversity of people a good idea? You know, like, why do we want the entire world to be coming up into an industrialized civilization rather than keeping some countries incredibly fucking impoverished and other countries incredibly wealthy? Like, I think these are all ideas that are worth occasionally revisiting and kind of talking about. I think that's a really, really important thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with what you're saying. I also think that when it comes to things like, you know, if you have people being like, well, why? If you get to the point where someone's really like, well, you know, the Jews were causing a lot of trouble in Germany, like, well, you know, of course it's sad to kill innocent people, but, you know, what happened needed to happen. Like, if someone has that kind of view, I understand why people like this seems beneath.
Oh, wait. Are you talking about like Holocaust denialism?
Holocaust denialism or Holocaust endorsement or some weird combination of the two.
Sure. Denialism is really hard because at that point you're in flat earth territory. It sounds really... I don't want to say that any particular person is irredeemable, but you're getting about as close as you can be, if not go over the line at that point.
So I do think that there are positions where once you hit them, you say like, okay, now's the time to stop engaging and to focus on other people who are not this far gone.
Possibly, yeah, sure. And then also keep in mind that anytime you do any of these kinds of discussions, oftentimes you're not necessarily looking to convince that particular person, but you're maybe looking to convince the people that are listening. Yeah, that there are some people in the middle that are completely stupid. Or I'm sorry, some people in the middle that are completely undecided, that, you know, you want to show that the other person is completely stupid.
Yes. So I mean, I don't know. So when it comes with these debates, like in terms of convincing the audience, I don't know. Like because sometimes I feel like I think about how would you do that, and sometimes like the ways that seem like they might work seem almost like a little bit like dirty to me. Like, oh God, like so I feel like great rhetorical use has been made on YouTube of painting SJWs or painting, you know, these whole ideas as this like social justice warrior caricature of these like screaming college students.
Yeah.
And who are self-evidently a mockery and who everyone finds basically annoying. And so anytime you're able to sort of paint your opponent as being that kind of person, people just turn off from it. So I mean, could you do something like that with the right? Could you find some way to make them just mock, you know,
you
laughable?
Can, but I think that's a bad idea. So what you're talking about is this is the epitome of fucking intellectual cowardice, right? So what you do is, so let's take, okay, so here's an idea, okay? Women earn, I think it's like 23% less or whatever than men do, okay? The reason why they do that is because women choose to work different fields, women choose to work different hours, and women oftentimes choose to be the ones that stay at home, okay, right? These are some of the reasons given, right? But it is an undeniable fact that wage gap, you know, it does exist, right? So what people do is we seek to explain that and then ask, is this something that's worth changing, right? If it comes down to the fact that, you know, that biologically or whatever, you know, women, you know, are just making these choices, then okay, well, whatever, you know, some wage gap will exist. That's fine. If it comes down to sexual discrimination or discrimination in education or whatever, then okay, well, these are issues that we need to fix, right? So that position, that wage gap right there, that's a pretty hard position to attack. Nobody would want to attack that position. So instead, you create a caricature of somebody insisting that a woman is literally getting paid $7.50 and a guy is getting paid $10 an hour and they're working the same job every side, right? This constructing straw men to tear down viciously, this is what fucking Sargon does on every fucking thing that he ever on all of his videos, where Sargon will take a video of like the craziest person that he can find and then tear down these pictures like, oh, like, so you want to take it all white men not having jobs so that black people get jobs? Well, obviously this is stupid. So all affirmative action. I'm like, well, hold on, okay? What if you have government allocating money to a company so that they have enough extra money from the government to hire an additional black person? It's not like a white person would have missed on this job, but what about that, right? That's a much harder position to attack, right? But I feel like so this is something that I learned about kind of recently, right? You have something called the principle of charity, right? The idea is you want to be as charitable to your opponent's argument as possible so that when you tear it down, you're tearing down the strongest version of the argument and you know that you're in the right. I think that should always be the goal. I don't think that fighting shit with shit is like the best kind of idea in terms of like dealing with people over there, right? Like something like, you're familiar with the Sean and Jen dude or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
Like his videos on Sargon, I think, are really good, and they show good thought processes.
Yes, he's great on going deep on those topics.
Yeah, and not even necessarily deep. It doesn't come off when I watch his videos. It's not so much that like I am a very intelligent person that has significant background in this. It's more let's just do a small critical evaluation on this source. When he went through the arson thing on like the
I guess what I mean when I say deep is simply that he focuses on one specific thing and then just does the research and gets to the bottom of it.
Sure.
I guess I say that because I don't generally do that on my channel. I tend to look at more broad topics instead of focusing on one specific little argument or part of an argument. But so I guess, I mean, I think that, so the principle of charity, that's like the norm in academic philosophy. You're supposed to do this. Of course, it's completely unheard of on the political debate. Of course,
stage, yeah,
right. But So I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that this is what I mean when I say there's certain tactics that feel dirty. To me, to return to respond to the straw manning and caricature with straw manning and caricature feels dirty. But So I guess that's a reason to avoid doing it. But you seem to also think that it wouldn't be effective.
Well, I mean, it could oh fuck. So this is where my childlike optimism and everything comes right. I think that it probably could be effective, but I guess like for when I talk to people on my channel, I try to catch people on this all the time. We just had like a huge bout where I did round 2 with a crazy race realist a couple days ago. But like what I try to encourage people to do is to think critically about everything that they're seeing. Don't buy into insanity on either side. Don't like buy into the attacking strawman, but really know like, why is race realism bad? Race realism isn't necessarily bad because every single person on the right wants to lock up and murder every single minority. You know, race realism is bad for a whole set of other reasons, because you do have legitimately very intelligent minority people that are capable of contributing across a wide range of things that, you know, that you want participating in your society. You want these people to succeed, you know? And you want to reduce crime, not only in your country, but it's in your best interest to reduce crime across the border. If Mexico was as stable as Canada, we wouldn't be talking about illegal immigration in the United States, you know? I think that there are a lot of really great empirical data arguments that can be made on the left side, and I feel like if you do that enough, then you kind of expose the stupidity on the other side. Like, I don't know, I would hope that people would see stuff like that and you know, start to come to understand that, you know, like, okay, well, like, this is really, you know, maybe there is a point to be made here. I don't know, I get messages like that. Maybe it's just people tickling my goose or whatever, but
no, I think that's right. I think there's the least we can say is that there are a lot of people who I think can be convinced by that, by that way of going through things. And I do think that a mistake that a lot of, well, not necessarily a mistake, but it's a limitation of activism or of activists often, is that they haven't developed the set of skills or just the set of, not necessarily even skills, but just the experience with arguing in that kind of way against that kind of thing. Yeah. So, you know, in their activism, they just take certain things for granted because they don't want to sit around all day arguing the basics. But if you want to convince people who aren't on your side, there actually comes a point where it's helpful to be able to do that, to sort of understand what the opposing side is, what this thing you're opposing comes from, and why people believe it, and precisely why it's wrong. Not just because you have these negative associations with it, but because of reasons that are more sort of public, or reasons that are more likely to persuade people who aren't on board already.
For sure. And even at that, like, I don't expect every single person to become like a debate master or something like that. Like every single person to run out speaking at 400 words per minute, with a slew of stuff, right? I would just hope that if you are a YouTube content creator, that I just hope that like part of your responsibility to your artist, or I'm sorry,
I love you.
Wow. That was a fucking thing. Okay. That your part of your responsibility to the audience is that you are doing that due diligence and you are presenting the argument. So at least there's kind of like, so if somebody says something like I really don't like X idea that the right pushes, and then, you know, your right-leaning friend is like, well, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. They can point like, okay, well, go and look at this guy talk about this thing. And when they go and look at that video, it's not going to be somebody saying something like, well, if you're on the right, you're a fucking idiot. Like, how fucking backwards. Like, obviously this is bad. Instead, it's like, hey, you know, like this idea on the left, you know, this is a good idea for this reason and this reason and this reason. And I acknowledge that there are problems in it, you know, and you kind of move from there, you know?
Yeah, so I think another important move or step in this is to do sort of anticipating objections. This is another like kind of philosophy skill, but like when you're making, this is the thing I try to do often when I'm making YouTube videos, is to try to like, don't wait for the comments section to post the objections. Yeah. Like, figure out what they're going to say first. So like when I do the video on race, on what is race or what is gender, or even like the one about being genderqueer, like I watched a bunch of other people's videos about those subjects and looked at what the dissent was in the comments section to see if I could kind of like, let's like talk about this before the video is even done. And I think that's that way. So I think that's a good way to be persuasive, especially when you're not sure, when you have trouble understanding why anyone would even disagree with something so obvious, which I think is the case a lot of people find themselves in when it comes to these things. Well, you like the only way to find out what people say, why people dissent, is empirically. You go out in the world and see what people are saying. For sure. And so that, I think, is also a good skill for people who's like you said. I don't think that everyone has to do this, but if you want to be one of the people who is the kind of evangelist. That's not a flattering word, I know, because people are against religion. But
or, if you want evangelizing in general usually reeks of like preaching. Yeah.
Yeah, preaching. But I mean, if we stick to purely like religious metaphors, like if you want to be the evangelist instead of preaching to the choir, you really need to know who you're preaching to.
For sure.
Yeah.
I had a talk with a guy. This guy had been on my Twitter feed for a long time, a couple days ago, and he was one of the very, very, very anti-Islam. Every single thing somebody does that's Islamic is because of Islam. Like, he was like on that kind of side of things. And and I pulled him over, and I didn't actually even think much about this. I kind of just wanted to grill him because I like a really easy question. Usually, like, how do you explain the 3 million Muslims in the United States? Like, why are these people peaceful? Like, what about that? After a while, they kind of fall apart. But something that I thought that was kind of interesting is that in the course of me talking to him, so I had a debate with Lauren Southern, and as part of that, I had to do a lot of prep on crimes of immigrants and whatnot, and especially in Germany, because that was a hot topic at the time. And in the course of my research, like, I did find out a couple things. Like, for instance, immigrants in general tend to be underrepresented in crime in Germany. Refugees from Syria were dramatically underrepresented, but there were groups of people from northern Africa, I believe, especially northern African Muslim refugees were very overrepresented across a wide variety of crime in Germany. And when I was talking to the guy, and I admitted as much, and I said something along the lines of like, if there are people that are dramatically overrepresented in crime, I think that these are things that need to be looked at. So whether that's a more stringent screening policy, whether that was more work spent on integration, or some kind of thing, like, that this is definitely a topic that needs to be looked at. When I was willing to make, I don't want to say that's even making a concession, but when I was willing to acknowledge that problem, he actually completely flipped over to my side. Where this idea that I basically was just trying to talk him down from being a reactionary, which is how everybody seems to define themselves these days, right? Like, well, you believe this thing, I disagree with that, so I'm going to find the farthest fucking position I can take from that, and that's what I'm going to believe in. It's like the 16, 17-year-old kids. It's like, oh, my parents are X, well, I am literally the fucking negative whatever of that thing, the inverse, as far away from that as I can be, is going to be my new thing.
Yes, or this thing I hear all the time where people say that, they saw these SJWs rioting on college campuses, they had no choice but to vote for Trump and to become alt-right shit posters.
This is why Trump won.
This is why Trump won. Like, well, that doesn't follow actually at all. But but I agree that it is a reaction people have, and I agree that also, like, people want to feel heard, and a lot of times that is a big obstacle to conversation, is that people. So this is the sort of feminist versus MRA debate is a little bit outdated at this point. It seems like that to me. It seems like that's not as much of a hot topic as it was a year or two ago. Sure. But I saw a lot of just like disastrous attempts to communicate or failures to communicate with that, because I think a lot of times with the cases, like, so basically what happens to feminist activists is, on social media, on Twitter and so on, most of their experience with people calling themselves MRAs is with people basically asking disingenuous questions. Mm-hmm. Why don't you do that about men? Basically as a way to discredit them. And so it's very hostile and annoying. And so they just kind of hate men's rights activists and feel like they're just misogynists and so on. But there are actually people. I've met people who call themselves men's rights activists, and they seem not to be like that. They seem actually to care about these issues that they have.
And there are issues that men disproportionately face. Yeah. Yes,
and sort of like, or male suicide or male emotional isolation or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, like a lot of times, like, there's not any reason why the feminists should be disagreeing with these things. Or a lot of feminists will say that, like, of course, that they also think that it's part of feminism, in fact, that they oppose this kind of emotional stifling or isolation of men, or the fact that men don't have good social networks and things, because they think that the feminist position on this is usually that if you were to have a less patriarchal or less misogynistic society, actually you would see men not have those problems anymore. Sure. So, but the thing is, like, instead of being able to talk. To sort of come together on the point of agreement, this point about this mutual suspicion, this mutual hostility is just a wrench in the machine.
It reminds me a lot. It's actually really funny, but it reminds me a lot of how that people can be very racist but still be friends with the groups of people that they're racist against, right? It's because when we have these caricatures of people, they're very, very, very dehumanizing, right? The more you humanize something, the more impossible really it is for a person to hate that particular thing. It's really hard to be in. This is why in video games and voice chat it tends to be less toxic than text chat. And even though you think it would be the other way around, I don't know. Do you ever play any video games at all, or?
A little bit, yeah.
So in video games, right, you would think that, like, okay, people are so mean in text chat, like voice chat's got to be horrible.
Yes.
It's really hard if somebody's like, oh, I fucked up, I'm sorry, my bad. It's really hard to scream and shit at that person. That's a whole other level.
Yeah,
and the funny thing is that when you play games with voice chat, if you get into a game, the people that are only typing in the beginning are always the ones that are raging. Very rarely do they actually come on mic to do it. It's always the people that are typing in the text chat. But I noticed that we're like, like, what is an MRA? Well, an MRA is a guy that hates all women. He's probably MGTOW. He's probably red-pilled and on PUA. Probably thinks that all women are whores and sluts, blah, blah, blah. And then on the MRI side, like, well, who are feminists? Feminists are people that say they want equality, but that's bullshit. They just want women on top of everything. They want, right? Neither of these groups of people actually exist, right? The people that the other side imagines, or if they do, they're in such an extreme minority.
In small numbers, yeah.
Yeah. But it seems like nobody is able to kind of like say like, okay, well, hey, you know what, dude? Like, you kind of have a point. Like the anti-globalists, like, you kind of have a point. There are some people that get really fucked by globalist policy. Manufacturing in America is just one example. There are some people that get fucked by this. And then rather than take the Hillary Clinton route of America's already great, which it is, but that message isn't resonating with the people that got fucked by the specific policies that he was preaching, right? You're like, you have to acknowledge that there's a little bit on both sides, and not in the radical centrist way, but like
that's what I mean about hearing people. Like, again, because so that can be a rhetorical mistake on, so for example, Hillary Clinton saying America's already great, or like, you have to think how it sounds to the people who've lost everything, and like they just feel like they have no prospect. Like, that's not a message, is not like things are going fine, is not a message that resonates with them. So you have to, like, making them feel in definite and specific terms, I think, that you understand what their complaints are is helpful. But yeah, the humanization thing, I think, is really important. I mean, what you're describing with text chat and voice chat, I mean, I think that if you put people in the same physical room, you would see an even more dramatic humanization shift. And it's one of the reasons why YouTube comments are so bad, is they're so anonymous. So
and everybody is a caricature of everything, and there are no real fucking people. Right. Yeah.
But I think, like, when you're making content, like making YouTube videos, for example, I think that there's something I think about is, like, because it's helpful if you can humanize yourself and not just be kind of a cardboard cutout of a spokesperson for the view. And so I know, like making yourself, revealing something like personal things about you and how your thoughts and feelings and doubts about things, it can be hard, or you can feel dangerous even, because you're kind of making yourself vulnerable.
Yeah, just especially on the fucking internet.
Yeah, especially on the fucking internet. But on the other hand, it can also help you become more of a sympathetic human to an audience. So I mean, I'm not just like saying I know what is the right balance to strike there in terms of protecting yourself versus humanizing yourself. But I do find that sometimes, paradoxically, making yourself more vulnerable can make you more sympathetic.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes being more, and sometimes making yourself. Yeah, no, this is something that that I think about a lot too. Like, I engage in a lot of pretty edgy stuff on my stream that a lot of people on the left would think is pretty fucking important, right? So I use like kill yourself as an insult pretty liberally. I unfortunately, I'm not proud to say it, but like, I use autist a lot as an insult, right? These are things that I'm probably not going to do as much in the future. I haven't thought as much about it, but because I do that, I have a reach to a lot of people that otherwise, like, when you think of left-leaning person and you're in the gaming community, you're thinking of, okay, Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, Randy Harper. Like, these are the names that come up. You're never listening to anything that any of these people are ever saying ever, right? But when you have, like Destiny, the guy that makes rape jokes and says, kill yourself all the time, is saying that, women face a lot of unique and shitty issues in gaming. It sounds really bad to say, but I have a lot more credibility there sometimes when I talk about issues, because like, oh, well, Destiny's saying that? Oh, that's really interesting. Like, he's like a really hardcore like dude or whatever. Like, that's kind of strange that he would say that, right? I get like a little bit more credibility there in a lot of my arguments, because I come off as more authentic than kind of like the very, very left-leaning outside people.
That was absolutely my experience last year when I first came on YouTube. And again, it was the same kind of thing. I was doing a lot of edgy bullshit, and it works. I mean, like, people like there's a whole segment of, maybe it's still bad, and I guess the debate to have for people on the left is this worth it, or should we still stop? But like, so. Yeah, if you this kind of edgy stuff makes it absolutely pulls in an audience that feels like there's, like, ironically enough, they feel like they're safer around you or something. Like, they feel like that you're not just this like moralist who's going to judge them for behaving in the way that they and their friends behave. Now, of course, that you can run into problems there when, like, I think a couple of streams ago we talked about the fact that you used to use the word faggot a lot or something. Yeah, and then you encountered a moment where you realized that someone else had used the word, and you realized that they kind of meant it in a way that you hadn't, and the realization kind of ruined it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think I can imagine the same thing would happen with like rape jokes, or could happen with rape jokes, or using the word autist or whatever as an insult. But I mean, it's sort of a matter of how you do it too. Like, I think, I don't know, like, because people have criticized me for, using
being self-deprecating about the trans stuff,
for being for that, and also for saying things like, for using like insane or stupid or in a derogatory way, because some people, like the mental illness, think that you shouldn't be using mental illness terms at all, including words
like stupid, insane, or dumb, or very ableist.
Yeah, or ableist.
Yeah, some of those get really creative. Do you ever read shit Reddit says?
I don't think I have.
Oh, very hardcore SJW community. These guys dedicated their lives to trying to destroy my career 2 different times. Like, I usually spend a lot of time reading in these communities, and it's really funny. I don't know if this happens in other communities, but like every 6 months there will be like a big thing where someone will say something and someone will be like, wait a second, should we really be allowed to say that? And then there'll be this like whole debate for like a week on whether or not they're allowed to actually, neckbeard used to be a really popular insult on that, but they eventually, I want to say this was like 2 or 3 years ago, a thread came up and somebody said something like, I'm not really comfortable with the neckbeard because neckbeard is kind of making fun of autistic people. They don't have the social cues to shave or whatever. Like, I don't think we should, right? And you'll get like people, or in terms of ableism, when you think of ableism, people think like, don't say retarded or autistic, right? Well, but some people take ableism to also mean you shouldn't really say stupid or dumb or moron either. And it's like, whoa, shit.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like there's going to be a definite gray area. To me, I think using specific mental diagnoses as insults, I think it comes across bad. So OCD, bipolar, autistic. I don't think I don't use any of these in a derogatory way, because
you're associating that group of people with like something that's intrinsically bad, right?
Yeah. It's too specifically. It's knocking someone else down by comparing them to this group of people, and it's completely undeserved. But when it comes to like stupid, for example, I mean,
I'm just waiting for a lot of like SJW-esque people to get diagnosed with Crohn's and then see if shitlord is as popular.
Well, so with like stupid is not a medical diagnosis. Like, so I mean, you can say that like moron and thing, like these are actually like historically they are medical or psychiatric terms.
Yeah, it wasn't psychiatrically like I thought that moron, stupid, and imbecile they all correspond to IQ level.
They did. Historically they did. But now, I mean, what we say when we say someone's stupid often is we often say that they're ignorant, or that they're unreasonable, or that they're sort of intellectually lazy or something.
Sure. But now you're running into the people that are saying things like, well, you can't take that term back because you weren't part of those disenfranchised people, and you're making the same argument that white people make when they say they should be able to use racial slurs.
I mean, so the question is like part of it is it's not that you're so. One reason why I think, for instance, it's not good to go around calling people retarded. It's like, so how is this going to sound to someone who has like a sibling who's mentally retarded?
Sure.
Like, it's you're demeaning other people by comparing them to their brother or whatever. So that you can see why that would kind of like sting a little bit to that person. But when someone who has a sibling or a child with an IQ of 60 or 50 or 40 or whatever, like when they hear the word moron or imbecile, like, is what they hear, they're by comparing this person to my sibling, they're demeaning them. Like, my inclination is to think that probably that's not the first association that we have, because contemporary usage, like imbecile or moron, are just derogatory. They're not really used to describe people of a specific IQ or something like that.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't know. I guess it's, like I said, a gray area, and I might be wrong about this, but I guess to me, maybe it's just that to me, like things like insane and stupid are so like deep, they're so deep in my vocabulary that it's hard to get them out. But I mean, I don't know. I could probably be persuaded to especially if, but I think it would require sort of, change around the way those words are used. To me, I'm not persuaded that there's a need for that change because I'm not persuaded that these words have the effect that they say they do. I think that some people have become convinced that they do because they've gotten used to reflecting really carefully on the implications of the words they use. Including in very legitimate cases like, we shouldn't be fat shaming or using autistic as an insult or so on, or making, but then then you start thinking like, wait a minute, should we be calling people stupid at all? Mm-hmm. I think that might be, I don't know. I think that might be taking this into overdrive a little bit.
For sure.
But I mean, I know you're not going to disagree with me on this, so I don't know how I'm making this argument to you.
Yeah, no, I understand, yeah. You get lost in the sea of like, what am I allowed to say? It's really funny to watch the communities become a little bit like pariahs or whatever when they start to eat another member up because they they said a word that you can't even. Yes. There's so many like, how many levels of SJW are you on right now?
Well,
and did you call him a moron? Like, and it's like they start freaking out. It's like, holy shit.
I've seen it happen where someone makes an accusation like that, and then someone accuses the accuser of making offensive assumptions by making the accusation.
Well, like.
So, for instance, your example of calling people neckbeards is offensive because you're insulting autistic people. Are you saying that autistic people are neckbeards? Like
yeah. Or like my favorite real life example of this was that time on The View. I think when that I think she was even a dark skinned lady. I don't know. I don't think she was like a black. I don't know what the fuck she was, but she was. Can I say ethnic lady? I'm not sure if that's politically correct or not.
It's definitely not.
Okay. A darker skinned lady. I don't know what the fuck I don't know what she was, but she said something on The View where it was a nice colored lady, right? Said something on The View. She said something along the lines of like, Donald Trump, if you're going to sit here and threaten to deport all Mexicans, right? This is a horrible thing. Well, now who's going to clean the toilets in your hotels, right? She said that.
Ooh, yeah.
And like everybody else was like, wait, what do you mean? And she's like, oh, no, wait, I didn't mean it like that. And they it was this huge, awkward fucking thing. Like, yeah.
Well, I mean, the thing is that like, so everyone carries around these assumptions that are kind of offensive, but even the thing is like, so social justice warriors, when they're being honest with themselves, should realize that they're not immune to being problematic as hell, like by their own definition, right?
Oh, this was a white as fuck lady that said this. I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, sorry, keep going.
It was a white as fuck lady. Well, but yeah. So I don't know where I was going with this.
People carry around these things with them.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, I think to me, I think that part, if you're going to be a real proper social justice warrior, mm-hmm. like I mean this, and I'm now, I guess I'm not just unironically using this term in a non-derogatory sense, but like, the best way to be a social justice warrior, in my opinion, is to be aware is to sort of not be a moral crusader in the sense of you thinking, being the sanctimonious one who's above everyone else, but you sort of understanding your own involvement and participation in these same flaws and being able to perceive, nevertheless, the like sort of like morally problematic thing about it. And I guess, okay, I remember the thought I had before that I forgot. But the thought I had before was like, I know it seems ridiculous to a lot of people to go around like policing your own language so much. But I think that one advantage of it is it kind of causes you to reflect a little more deeply about what it is, what your moral values actually are. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, like when it comes to like introspecting about why am I calling people moron or imbecile, like is it because I believe that having a low IQ is really bad and degrading and it's called or is it am I trying to point to like, because that seems like not a moral flaw, but often I feel like we're using the term moron, stupid, insane, like it is a kind of accusation of something immoral. Mm-hmm. So in a sense, really what you want to be accusing them of is like dishonesty or laziness or some other thing that can more be easily incorporated into a moral description. So it may be, in a sense, calling people intellectually lazy it would in fact be a more accurate way of saying that they're just an imbecile. Sure. That's what I definitely call people.
Yeah, and what you're saying.
So I'm not like grandstanding here, but
yeah, and what you're saying also kind of goes along to that thing. I don't remember if I talked to you about this earlier, but like that whole like your humor is a reflection of really what you believe inside, right? So like if you're using racial slurs to describe people all the time, why? Like what is there something a little bit more going on there? Like if I go to poll, right? And I think I used this example last time. Like you have like the multi-ethnic racial household, this black guy married to an Asian woman with interracial children who works in an interracial workplace, and then he comes home at night and he gets on a poll and he exclusively uses racial insults. Like I don't believe these people really exist, like
yes, yeah, exactly. I completely agree. That like okay, like, so you're just joking when you're saying, these ironically racist things, but like
all the time, like
there's so many things that you could do ironically, and this is the one you've chosen
to do over and over
and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, so one thing about irony is like, so to me, this is a kind of funny way this can go in the other direction. Is for years ago when I first started cross-dressing, which is how I thought of it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. Anytime I did it publicly, I would always insist on the irony or comedy of it, because irony and comedy, they can be ways of kind of testing out things that you're not completely comfortable with yet,
mm-hmm.
and not always, but I think some people probably do ironically cross-dress or something, but also if you're sort of afraid to express femininity, but want to on some level, doing it ironically can kind of be a way of like testing out the waters, dipping a toe in. But I think, and that I think was probably useful for me at some point in my life. I don't need it anymore because I'm much more comfortable with it now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I see, but this is one of the reasons why when I see people ironically testing out, borderline fascist ideas or racist ideas, or, saying a lot of ironic racist stuff and then insisting that it's just a joke. Well, is it possible that they're just kind of they're trying out these ideas in the way that I was trying out dresses? No,
I don't believe that.
they're seeing how they feel, like in this ideological step. I think I've heard Richard Spencer say something like that. Like he thinks that like trolling is useful to his position because it gives like young people a way of kind of testing out the idea before getting more deeply committed to it.
I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit of the cart before the horse. I feel like most people start doing it because they've already internalized that idea.
So you think they're already fully on board by the time they start.
The really funny thing I see is like if you want to talk about testing, is go onto these forums and see if you can make jokes in the opposite directions and see if they'll laugh or if they'll get incredibly fucking offended. One of my favorite fucking tropes, memes of all time. If you have to leave very soon, I understand. So,
I do. That's fine. Yeah.
One of my favorite things that happened in all the fucking history in the gaming community is, and this extends to media too, all the time. As white people, we kind of take for granted that every single person in the media, it represents us. I can find any representation of white power, not like white power, but like a powerful white person in any form of media that I want, right? And it's never a second thought for me, right?
Yeah.
But when minority types complain about this, whether it's women or racial minorities or whatever, when they complain about this, the very common go-to is always like, why does the person need to be black or whatever for you to empathize with them? Doesn't that make you the racist one? Like, is that really that big of a deal? And people say that to minorities all the time, over and over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Something that was really fucking funny in one of the gaming subreddits was the new FIFA game or some shit came out, and it had a campaign mode, but the main character was black or brown or something.
Yes.
And like one of the third most upvoted comments was, this is kind of bullshit. Like usually when I roleplay these games, I go for immersion. The main character is black. How am I supposed to understand this, right? And it was like, I couldn't even believe that this was the third most. I was like, are you actually serious right now? Like, and these are the same groups of people that any time you have a movie or a game with a lead female or minority character, people are like, oh, boring, SJW. Does it really need to be a minority? Does it really? It's like, what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that this is one of the funniest and most maddening like manifestations of this. Like I've noticed it with other games too. I forget, but just like, I mean, this happens anytime a game comes out. Like imagine just any game that comes out, a first-person shooter comes out. Let's hypothetically say with a black female protagonist. Like people are gonna lose their shit.
Or Tracer being gay in Overwatch.
Right. And the funny thing is that it's the people losing their shit about it are the same people who are going to not understand in any way why anyone would want some more representation from non-white characters.
And even going further than that, tell them, delegitimize their point of view. Like, you don't need this. Like, dude, the Tracer gay shit, I don't remember if we were talking about that. People went fucking crazy. And it was like the most harmless fucking shit in the world. Like, yeah.
Right, every character must be a straight man, otherwise I am being victimized.
Or the questions,
people having a victim complex.
The questions that reveal so much of your mind. Like, well, why do they have to be gay? Yeah. Like, well, why does anybody have to be gay? What do you mean by asking that? What are you asking? Like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it reveals a lot. Anyway, unfortunately, I need to get going because I'm supposed to go meet someone. But
all right, well, good luck, buddy. Don't wear the Hitler outfit or costume. Did you decide
will
which?
Not.
What?
Oh, that one's solidly a costume. That one is solidly a costume.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have fun, buddy.
Nice
Thanks for the convo. Yeah, bye.
Yep. See ya.
All right, boys.